Hello, this is James Mandelbaum with Gigamon. Today we're here to talk about Gigamon Basics, deploying V Series on AWS. The agenda is we're going to do a quick overview of V Series. We're going to talk about some of the prerequisites or options for AWS deployment. We're going to go ahead and do an installation, and we're going to configure some flows. When we look at the cloud strategy around V Series, it really is intended to be a single offering that covers everything in your virtual, container, and service mesh infrastructure. So covering all the platforms from AWS, Google, and Azure. When we talk about the virtualized, Nutanix, VMware, OpenStack, anything that we're looking at, that's where V Series will fit in. One common license to service all of our infrastructures for our virtual environments. Today, of course, we're here to talk about AWS and our virtual machines. Licensing is fairly simple. It's offered as a subscription and offered in two flavors. First is CoreVUE. CoreVUE includes advanced flow mapping, header stripping, slicing, masking, and load balancing. NetView includes data deduplication and net flow generation for the data in motion. Much better than using sampling data. This gives you 100% net flow, and we can give you that entire end-to-end view. When we deploy into AWS, we have to make a decision on how are we going to get the traffic. If we're using older legacy type EC2 instances, then we may need to deploy a GigaVUE Tap, which is our agent-based solution. And what that does is installs and then sends that traffic off to the V Series controller. And then the next option would be to take a tunnel, and that would be an inbound traffic from maybe a load balancer. We can ingest traffic from other third-party tools. And what's more exciting is the ability to take it from other V Series nodes, meaning you can build out a very robust infrastructure. So if I have multiple VPCs, I can take, let's say, for example, I've got a production front-end VPC, I've got a back-end VPC, maybe I have a QA VPC, and I've got everything sectioned off, but I have my set of tools and a tool VPC. We can take and create separate V Series nodes and controllers into each one of them and then send that traffic off to a centralized place where the tools live and do this in the form of an aggregation. And we can get deeper into that when you talk to your Gigamon sales rep and sales engineer on how we do that. But we're going to try to keep this fairly simple in our demo today. And the best way, of course, is through mirroring. Now, one of the great things, if you've deployed Nitro EC2 instances, we have the ability of automating that entire process, which today, if you try to do AWS mirroring on your own, multiple clicks, I think it was 9 different steps to make it work. For us, it's automatic. So that's what we're going to do today in our demo. We're going to actually leverage a couple Nitro EC2 instances and do mirroring, grab that data, and send it off to a tool. Again, reinforcing what we just talked about, we can deploy using GigaVUE Taps, we can leverage AWS mirroring, and of course, tunnels. One of the questions that's commonly asked is, well, why would I use Gigamon over the built-in capabilities within AWS? And this chart gives you some of the things that are really nice to leverage, especially when we start looking at, I need to feed the traffic into my tools. My tools are consumption-based. A lot of times you're paying for the data on those tools. You're paying for the throughput on those tools, the compute, of course. So if I can reduce the amount of data that's hitting the tools to more relevant, precise data, then I get more value of what I'm looking for. So things like data deduplication, doing things like slicing and masking for compliance reasons. And then, of course, gaining that visibility. I didn't talk about it, but gaining visibility as you move into things like containers also become part of the capabilities within the service. So why don't we go ahead and get started? Let's go ahead and deploy. You're looking at my instances. Now, I've named them pretty straightforward. I use my name because it makes it easier for me to search for them. I currently have 2 instances running. I have an Ubuntu Linux running, and I have another Ubuntu that I have some network tools running in, And if I log into that one, I've got an ntop ng running right now, waiting for traffic to be sent. And right now, there is no traffic being seen. So what our goal is we're going to tap these hosts, and then we're going to send the traffic into the network tool and the ntop ng running here. When we go into the marketplace, we're looking for Gigamon. We'll do a search, and it's going to come back and show us 3 different options. The first one is the Threat Insight Sensor, which is our network detection and response capability. That's not what we're here today to cover. We are here to talk about the GigaVUE Cloud Suite. So there's 2 options here. One is I'm going to buy a license from Amazon, which is not what we're doing. The other is bring your own license. So we're going to go ahead and select that. It's going to show you the overview. Now, if this is your first time, you're going to have to click on subscribe. But because I've done this before, I'm going to click continue to subscribe. It's going to show you the EULA and the terms and conditions, which of course we all just click to continue. Now we've got 2 templates. The first one is our legacy template. It shows that 5.2. That is not where we want to go. We want to use this one, which will show 5.10. Now, this is the most current release that has been pushed up to AWS. We do have a 5.11, which you can either deploy 5.10 and then manually upgrade to 5.11. But my expectation is that 5.11 will be actually in the marketplace very shortly, and you won't need to do that. I'm going to go ahead and say continue to launch. And it's going to show you all of our information. We're going to launch the cloud formation. That's the script, the wizard. It's going to ask us where do we want to deploy it. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and choose Oregon, which is where I have my instances. We're going to accept the defaults. We're going to go ahead and let it use its template. It's going to use its S3 bucket and the URL that's provided by the template. So we're going to click Next. We're going to give it a stack name. So I follow a standard. Mandelbaum Fabric Manager, and this is 5.10. We're going to choose the key pair. If you don't have a key pair already, you'll have to create one, but I would imagine you have one since you have some instances we're trying to monitor. We will choose our VPC that we want to deploy it in. I only have one, but if you have, in most cases, you'll have multiple VPCs. You'll have your compute VPCs, you'll have your tool VPCs. Maybe you create a security VPC, and that's where you'll put the Fabric Manager and the Gigamon tools. Now, normally, if we look at the location of how we're going to put it, we would choose the private subnet, because you would use a Bastion host or a jump server to connect to this. You would never do what I'm about to do, which is I'm going to make it public. So I'm going to make this publicly addressable so we can access it from the outside. But I would highly discourage that you do that in production. But for demo purposes, it makes it easier. The next thing I'm going to do is, of course, something you would also never do is I'm going to make it available from everywhere, everybody. You would, again, lock this down so it would only be available from your jump hosts or your Bastion servers. For a name, I'm going to go ahead and give it a name, 5-10. And for the permissions, if you already have IAM roles defined, you can go ahead and select that role. But in my world, I have no roles predefined, so I'm going to let it go ahead and create the IAM role to manage Fabric Manager. I'm going to go ahead and accept all the defaults. Click Next. This is the template it's going to use. These are the details it's going to use. And I'm going to go ahead and scroll down and say, accept it, acknowledge it, and create the stack. So now it's off and going. If we refresh, we can see that it's off and building. So if we start looking at as it's building it, you can see that it's building the policies. It's going to build, there's our role, and we'll keep reading refresh. And if we look at the stack info, you can see that it's actually in process. And we'll go ahead and give it time to build. Now, if we switch back over to our EC2 instances, you'll see we now have Fabric Manager 5.10. It shows it running, although it's still doing its status checks. So we just kind of got to give it time. Let's go ahead and click into it, take a look. We can see that it's starting to get everything ready to go. We're going to have to wait until we get a public IP address. So let's go ahead and just come back out to our instances and just wait for it to be ready to go. We now have all of our instances ready to go. We got the status checks going. Let's go ahead and look at our Fabric Management instance. So you can see that it's fully deployed. The first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to copy this instance ID because that will be the password I'm going to use to log in. And I'm going to go ahead and open that public IP address, accept this, and proceed. And I should be connected to my Fabric Manager. The username is going to be admin. And the password I'm going to go ahead and paste because that's what we copied. And I'm going to go ahead and log in. Going to be dropped to the dashboard. The dashboard is our single pane of glass. Oh, I forgot. I got to accept the EULA. So we'll scroll down here, accept the terms, because like always, none of us read those things. Now the dashboard gives us a physical view of everything that's going on. Now we haven't done anything with it, so it's just fresh and a blank slate. From the dashboard, we're going to go into inventory. Now inventory is where all of our connections, our physical devices, and how we get the data connected so that we can view it and move it around. The traffic is where we actually make the flow maps to move the traffic. So right now we have to build that connection to AWS. So the first thing I need to do is I'm going to go in and create a tunnel. Now the reason I need to create a tunnel is I have that Linux instance sitting out there that has some software running on it that's expecting to receive that mirrored traffic. So I need to tell it, how do I get that traffic there? So I'm going to go ahead, create a new tunnel. And again, keeping consistency, I'm going to go ahead and just choose Mandelbaum AWS, but I could give it a better name. Why don't I say this is going to be VXLAN to tools? And then I'm going to choose a VXLAN. Now, if I choose VXLAN, it's going to send it VXLAN, of course, but GRE in the next version 5.11, if I choose it today, it's outbound only, but in the next release, you'll also be able to do inbound. Again, I talked about that aggregation, being able to move data in and out. But for now, everything is outbound. I'm going to go ahead and choose VXLAN. I'm going to go ahead and choose the IP address of my tool and click Save. And that's all there is to building the tunnel to send the traffic. Now, adding the monitoring domain is pretty straightforward. I'm going to click New. I'm going to give it a friendly name. I know there's a real surprise here, what I'm going to use. I'm going to go ahead and choose my instance role and the region, and I put everything in Oregon for my demo. I'm going to select the account and the VPC that I want this to be associated with, and tapping method. So early on in the slides, I talked about the fact that we have GigaVUE virtual taps. Those are the physical agents that you would install in your instance. We're going to use traffic mirroring. In 5.11, you will also see this none will become tunnels, but I don't have that since I'm in 5.10, but you will see that when you get to 5.11. And all I have to do is click Save. It's now going to go out, make the connection, and it's going to inventory what's there. I'm going to select my VPC. I'm going to go ahead and select a general purpose solid state volume. I have to select my key pair. And I'm going to choose my management subnet, which you would never do this, but because, as I said, everything I'm doing is public, I'm going to just keep everything on the public subnet. My security group, I'll choose my security group. Again, this security group is wide open, so again, you would never do this, but for demo purposes, why not? When we select our V Series controller image, you're going to be provided with different versions. Always select the most recent version unless you have a reason for going backwards, but that's what we want to do. We're going to add a tag, and the tag is going to be name, and I know you're surprised. It's going to be my name followed by V Series controller. When we go down to the V Series node, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the minimum number to 1. I want to go ahead and have this spin up now and have it ready. I'm going to go ahead and choose the tool subnet, and I'm going to go ahead again and choose public because that's where I'm putting all of my stuff. Again, in your environment, you would probably not use public subnets to do things. You would use private. I'm going to go ahead again and choose my default wide open security group. I'm going to choose a tag, name. Oops, can't even type my own name today. And V Series node. And I'm going to go ahead and save. Now what's going to happen is you will see it's going to come back to launching. If we go over to these EC2 instances, what's going to happen is it's going to start spinning them up. And you can see the V Series controller is spinning up. And once it initializes and gets the V Series controller going, you'll see the V Series node going. So we're going to go ahead and put a pause on here. Now that our V Series controller and node are back up and running and we go back to Fabric Manager, you'll say that we've got an OK status. So we've done the inventory part. So now what we have to do is create the traffic flow to leverage that tunnel that we built to say, I want to get mirror of all my traffic and send it out. So we're going to go to traffic. We're going to come down here to the flows. We'll choose AWS, and we're going to go ahead and create a new monitoring session. So we'll go ahead and call this Mandelbaum AWS. I know that's a reach. We're going to select the domain. We'll select the connection and click create. Pretty straightforward. So in the lower right-hand corner, you can see these are all the targets. We have this automatic target selection, which shows everything that's running. But we don't have anything highlighted yet because we haven't told it what we want to see. So I'm going to come over here and say, I want to build a new flow map. So I'm going to drag that out onto the screen. And now we have to give it an alias. Now in my case, I just want to say, I just want to grab everything. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I am going to call this a pass all map. So pass all traffic. We're going to add a rule. And the rule I'm going to add, you can see there are many options, but one of which is just to pass everything. I'm going to give it a priority 1 and click save. So what I've done now is I've created a rule that says when I deploy this, just copy everything you see and send it off. But where do you send it? Well, I created this tunnel earlier, which is the VXLAN to the tools. And all I need to do is say I want to take this flow map and drag it between it. Now, if I wanted to do things like data deduplication or slicing or masking or generating NetFlow, these are the applications that are sitting over here. So I could, if I wanted, drag data deduplication and instead take this line, delete it, and replace it where I would draw a line from here to here. But just for the purposes of what we're doing today, I'm not going to, but just to show you how easy. Now to deploy this, it's just as simple now saying deploy. Now what you'll see is it'll start saying deploying, and it'll take a little while. Wow, that was very fast. And we got success. So I can click status, and it's going to show me what did it do. Well, it deployed it. What are the targets it's seeing? I can click on it, and it's going to show me that it automatically saw my 2 instances. I've got my Ubuntu 18, and I've got my network tools. So now what's going to happen is it's going to start sending traffic over to this NTOP NG. So if I look at statistics, I'm not going to see anything yet. It's too new. I can look at things by the hour, but shortly this will start showing traffic that's being sent to the tool. Now we'll start seeing traffic in NTOP NG, and we've already started seeing we've got traffic now between these hosts that we didn't have that the last time we went there. And this is going to take a little time to start building up some flows. I can start seeing some hosts over here. So you can see I've got different host IPs that it's starting to see and some traffic flow. So we have automatically started seeing traffic. I can look at different ports. In this case, it's not going to have much again because as I only have that one. But the point is that when we started this, there was no traffic, and now I have traffic going. And that's really all it takes to start doing this. And we could wait a little while. We can see some flows on this. I'm going to go ahead and pause here. Let's give it a little time to start building out some stuff here. You'll see that the graph will start to build out. It's going to show our outgoing traffic. It's going to show, of course, the ratio in to out, because in this version I'm not receiving any inbound traffic. But in 5.11, as you start doing that aggregation concept where you can send traffic in, send traffic out, it really does give you a lot of flexibility. I want to thank you for watching my video, and hopefully you've got something out of it. I would encourage you to join the Gigamon community at community.gigamon.com. As always, follow me on Twitter. Thank you very much.